Hello, Batmanultra7, back with a new video. I know it's been a while. Um, I did not, I did not want as big as a gap I've had in videos. I mean, not that I have a good record in the past, but I have a lot of plans. I have a lot of big things in the works. It's just things didn't go as planned, but big things are coming. But I wanted to release a video, um, something smaller and just uh, fun, but easy to digest, which is this, where I'm going to answer some questions given to me through social media on Twitter and Instagram. So here we go. A question from my good friend Sailor, otherwise known as Andrew. Video game adaptations are the next big thing when it comes to television and cinema. If you had to adapt one video game of your choice into a series/film, which one would it be and why? One, that's a great question, especially considering the popularity of the Mario movie right now and the Last of Us show, and even Jack Black mentioning that there should be a Red Dead Redemption adaptation. So it's obviously a very hot topic, and for me as a Sonic fan, the Sonic movies are great. Very well done, and very successful. Despite the whole big deal about the first Sonic design, which is water under the bridge at this point, considering how well the series has been doing. But if I were to adapt a video game, anyone who knows me well knows my answer will always be Metroid. I I am a huge fan of the Metroid series, specifically the Metroid Prime games, but all of the games. Metroid Dread recently is one of my favorite games of like the past decade. Um, and I know that's a big statement to make, but it's really simple, but just a beautiful game. Um, but Metroid would be such a great game to adapt because one, okay, you get to make it like an Aliens movie, like like Ridley Scott's Alien or James Cameron's Aliens. You get to make it, like go all in on the horror. I mean, uh, I know we all, give the Resident Evil films a lot of flack, but I think what those movies did well was the horror. I mean, not as good as I wish, but um, for how bad those movies are, they did it really well. But I digress. If you were to adapt the Metroid games, I think you could uh, do a lot with it. Um, I mean, get someone like uh, get. I'm honestly, I'd love for like Bloom Studios to do that. And I mean, I could even see someone like uh, Leigh Whannell, who did The Invisible Man, um, David F. Sandberg. Um, I could even see John Krasinski, who did the Quiet Place movies. I mean, I myself, as selfish as I am, I would want to direct a Metroid franchise or even a Metroid show. Though I think Metroid would work well as a trilogy. Um, I mean, as we all know, because the Metroid Prime trilogy is one of the best gaming trilogies ever, in my opinion. Um, and also, I think it would be really powerful to be able to bring Samus Aran to life in live action, because she's such a powerful female character in sci-fi. Not different from the iconic heroes of today. I mean, Samus, uh, in the way I would portray her, she'd be it. I mean, Metroid is sci-fi horror, and I think there's so much potential in that. Just like the Resident Evil games have such potential in film. Um, but like, as me being, I'm a big Wes Craven fan, and just all horror, especially the slasher genre, and also just delving into like um, alien horror. Like you could do a lot of good body horror in a Metroid film, like so, something like David Cronenberg. I wouldn't want David Cronenberg to direct the movie. Nothing against Cronenberg; he's fantastic. But I don't think he would be the right visionary for uh, this kind of movie. But I think it would be good to take some inspiration from his work, um, in how you portray the aliens in the Metroid universe. And I'm sorry, I love these games, and there's so much potential for it in a movie, and I hope it happens someday. Um, and if I'm being honest, I hope I get to you know bring it to film. Will I be able to do that? Probably not. But I just be glad for it to be made into films. Period. So now to the next question. Um, from my good friend Liam. Uh, if you were a Time Lord and could regenerate, who would you want to look like? Um, I'm assuming a good amount of the audience knows what Liam is talking about, but if you don't, Time Lords are a race of alien from the show Doctor Who, which I watch frequently. Um, and Time Lords, when injured, ill, or on the verge of death, can basically heal themselves and turn into and basically change their look, change their physical look. Um, and that's a device that the show is used to, you know, survive past just one actor. It's a fantastic show. I should talk about it more on the channel, but I haven't. Um, but I digress. My answer to this question is so if you were Time Lord and could regenerate, who would you want to look like? um, let's see. I'm trying not to reveal too much about how much I don't like the way I look, but um, let's see. Here's a couple: Andrew Garfield, David Tennant, um, Denzel Washington, Samuel Jackson, Stephen Amell, Michael J. Fox, Will Smith. I mean, it's just a lot of admirable men, and also just good looking people. Um, so that would be my answer. One of those people. Uh, okay, a question from Marvel DC fan, my one of my most constant collaborators on YouTube, and a very good friend. What is your dream property work on? See, that's too difficult a question. Because there's a lot of IPs I'd love to work on. I mean, anyone who knows me knows I love to work in DC. Um, for instance, okay, I love to make a Batman film. Anyone knows that. I mean, I technically am making a Batman film. Um, you know, with the DC for fans universe, I'm making Batman Cold Dark Knight. Um, but if I could make one for Warner Brothers, um, I'd do it in an instant. Um, also, James Mangold is writing and directing a Swamp Thing film, and I'm sure he's going to do a terrific job. And I'm really excited because I'm glad a character and mythos that is so near and dear to my heart has a very talented artist attached to it. But I would direct a Swamp Thing saga in an instant. Because I think the Saga of the Swamp Thing is the best comic book ever written. Frankly, and that's my opinion. There's so much great comic books out there, and whatever you love, I'm sure is great. Unless it's unless it's like All Star Batman and Robin. Uh, I mean, just kidding. Like what you want. Uh, but that's you know that's whatever it is. Um, I'd love to work on Sonic. I'd love to. Um, there's a lot of stuff I'd love to work on. I'd love to do a Marvel movie. Um, I think I'd love to make a Micronauts movie. I don't know who on here actually knows what the Micronauts are, but in the 70s and 80s, uh, Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden drew the Micronauts, and Bill Mantlo wrote the Micronauts, which was a sci-fi space opera about these freedom fighters in in the microverse. Basically, they're smaller than us. Like think Ant Man. Um, basically the quantum realm. This like whole other universe that is just it's smaller, and it's on Earth. This like whole other solar system in the like in between atoms, stuff like that. And they're facing against Baron Karza, who is a Vader type figure, which it's kind of hazy on the Vader influence for Karza for the Micronauts because the comics started coming out in '79, but the toys started releasing before Star Wars came out, which is really interesting to me. But I'd have to do more research on the timeline on that. But that's neither here or there. I would love to make a movie about that. I'd love to make a ROM movie. I'd love to do a Transformers movie. But um, the Transformers are already in very good hands, and I'm very excited about uh, what they have to offer in the Beast Wars movie. Besides that, I love to work on Doctor Who. I mean, I'm American, but uh, I love Doctor Who. I'd love to work on Doctor Who. Um, and finally, I'd love to work on Star Wars. I know anyone will say that, but uh, I grew up on Star Wars. I think there are stories that haven't been told in Star Wars. I mean, there's so much untouched ground in Star Wars, and I think kind of moving past the Skywalkers, there's a lot to do there, and pulling from the Western and and actually doing a samurai Star Wars film. it feels crazy to me, like absolutely insane to me that um, as a franchise that has taken so much from Japanese culture has never had a movie centered on a Japanese protagonist. Um, I mean, the closest we got, and by close, it's not as close as it should be, but the closest we have gotten is Rogue One, which is a terrific film. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. But I want, I mean, if I was ever to do a Star Wars movie, I'd love to have to do you know, a Japanese ceremony, um, a Japanese uh, ceremony Star Wars film, and I think that would be really special. And I want it to be very stylized, kind of John Woo, kind of IP Man, kind of deal, uh, and make it very different from what Star Wars usually is. And I think there'd be a lot of interesting things to do there. Um, I think that's about it. I mean, it. I could be talking for hours about the different kinds of properties that I'd love to work on. Okay, one more before I move to the next question. Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I love every single show in Star Trek. I love Voyager, Deep Space Nine, the original series, Next Generation. I love I love it all. I think Discovery is amazing. Um, I think the new shows are the best Star Trek has been in years. And I'd love to be any part of that. I'd love to direct an episode. I'd love to direct a movie. I mean, I'd love to bring Star Trek back to the movies, um, and preferably through um, the main show timeline. Do something there, and I'd like it to be more, Star Trekky. I mean, I I enjoyed the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, um, but they didn't really scratch that itch for me as a Star Trek fan until the last one. Star Trek Beyond is the only Star Trek film in that series that actually feels like Star Trek because Justin Lin really brought it back to that, like, they're explorers and they're stranded on this planet, and it's really well done. Justin Lin is a terrific director. Um, I hope he does more outside of what he was doing before that. I'd love for him to do another Star Trek movie. But yeah, I'd love to do Star Trek, and kind of bring it back to uh, what the TV shows are doing right now, which is, it's political commentary, it's a social commentary, it's the hope of exploration and, the humanity behind it all. And that's what Star Trek is all about, and that's what Star Trek should be about. Um, you know, and we tend to lose that sometimes, but that's what makes Star Trek so interesting. You know, uh, the intelligence of it, and I think one mistake that Star Trek fans can sometimes make is thinking Star Trek as an elevated, sci-fi animal. And yes, it talks about very intelligent things, and that's great. But there's no reason to um, presuppose it as the superior to something else, like the superior to Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica or Babylon 5, what have you. Just I love Star Trek. I think it's wonderful. I think I think it's one of the best one of the best things in fiction that I've ever experienced, and it would be a blessing to be even a small part of it. Anyways, that's it for my Star Trek rant. I'm gonna go to the next batch of questions, which I got a lot of questions from this guy, my friend Mikey Evanson, who is a fellow writer and director. He's got some really exciting stuff that he's cooking up, and he's a terrific guy, swell guy. I met him in person for the first time a couple weeks ago, when we went to a Comic Con in my area, Lexington Comic and Toy Convention. Wonderful time. I met Sam Raimi. I met Kevin Smith, and I will talk about that in a later video. But love this guy. What inclined you to start a YouTube? Um, not Being naive, being stupid a little bit, and also just having a raw love for nerdy things. I mean, I was discussing Doctor Who episodes. I was discussing Supergirl episodes. I mean, because that's the type of stuff I was enjoying at the moment, and I still enjoy that stuff. And you know, I grew up making little edits on Windows Movie Maker of like scenes from Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, with music, and I love doing that, and then it bled into like doing podcasts, which I kind of just tripped into, and I've loved doing it ever since. I mean, I'm terrible at it, but I love it. Um, that's basically it. I mean, I I love it. Tripped into it, and you know, I don't regret a second. When did you start your YouTube, and what changed from then on content you want to cover versus now? I started my YouTube. I believe that was, gosh, was that 2016? I think it was. Oh my gosh, I'm getting on years, guys. It's getting sad. Um, yeah. I believe it's 2016. Yeah, it's September 27th, 2016. It will be 7 years this fall. I will have been doing this YouTube thing, and gosh, that's too long, guys. Um, I mean, a lot's changed. Uh, I've been constantly changing what I'm doing. I've never really stuck to one thing. I mean, one moment I was doing one moment I was doing edits that would be like flagged by YouTube because I was using a Simon and Garfunkel song. Um, and then the next minute I'd be making like a review of a Supergirl episode from like, what was it? It must have been season 2 or season 3, or Doctor Who series 10, um, stuff like that. And then I moved on to like amateur video essays, um, and then slightly less amateur video essays to whatever you call what I'm doing now, which I think I've evolved, but I think the heart of it has remained the same. I think I've just expanded in what I want to talk about. Um, I think the first step into that was my Spawn video, which I think is currently my best performing video on the channel. Because one, I put a lot of passion into it. Two, I recognized that alone, I'm not very good at this, but if I have a really talented person to back me up, I can do anything. And that really talented person was Guido, who edited that video, and also three, if I'm talking about something I love, um, something really quality will come out of that, because I wrote a very long script for the episode because I love Spawn and I love comics, and I'm very passionate about that. And I think that's what I've learned with YouTube is that it doesn't matter how many people are watching. It just matters that you enjoy it, and I enjoy it. Um, how many scripts have you written already? How many are in progress? How many are you planning? Gosh, that is a dangerous question right there. Um, so I started writing scripts, screenplays. Yeah, I believe it was either 2016 or 2017. Um, Around 7 years now. Uh, Goodness, that's my gosh. Um, at an estimate, I've written around 10, I'd say. I don't really ever call anything done, but I'd say more than 10 are in progress. Um, I'm planning uh, around 100 films right now. Though I'm also working on Prodigy Comics. I'm writing scripts for each issue of the Sagittarius, which I'm working on the first arc of his story right now, which is really exciting. And I already have the first script for that done. I'm working on the DC for Fans universe. Um, Specifically Batman Cold Dark Knight, and the script's coming along for that. Working on Conversations with Kevin, which is going to be my first feature film. Um, and I'm really excited about that. I'm working on a Creature from the Black Lagoon reimagining, um, which I'm probably going to be talking about soon because I want to make that soon. I'm also working on a horror short film called The Once and Future King, which I've been working on for quite a while now. And I'm very proud of what I've done so far, but it also has a ways to go. Um, Besides that, I'm that's just a lot. Uh, yeah, that's what I'm gonna say right now. There's more that I could say, but I'm gonna not say it. And the final question from Mikey is superhero fatigue real? I've been reading about this a lot, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Um, I don't think the problem is superheroes. No, I don't believe that one bit. Um, because I've been feeling what people call superhero fatigue, and it's not superheroes I'm tired of. It's bad movies, and there's always been a version of this. Throughout film history, throughout art history. Um, it's not a fatigue of a specific type of art. Like it's not a it's like the whole thing with there was the cowboy film died. The cowboy film died because you know they lacked the will or the ability to innovate the form and change with the times to make something new, make something fresh. um you know Things change with the tide with film, but I truly believe if you have the will to adapt and change and improve, that nothing can truly die. And I think superhero films will be around forever and prosper forever if we keep innovating and if we keep doing new things, doing fresh things. Like if we keep making, Avenger Infinity Wars, um, yes, it's gonna die. It's gonna die because we can't. It can't just be spectacle. It can't. That's not a sustainable model. And really, I think the key to all film is variety. You know, um, people would be saying the same thing if all we had were like John Hughes comedies. If all we had were John Hughes comedies, nobody would want John Hughes comedies anymore. If all we had were Dwayne the Rock Johnson, action comedies, no one would want those because that's all there is. People need options. That's a fact. That's the fact of the model of Hollywood. People need options. The more variety there is, the more people will, seek out and choose what they want and what is appealing to them. And that's what I believe. I believe the greater variety of films there are, the more the superhero film will prosper. And that is the problem with Hollywood, is that they attach themselves to a particular fad or idea. And I'm not calling superhero films a fad, but they attach themselves to a particular idea and say, "Oh, this is what we're doing now." They're learning the wrong lesson. They're looking at Marvel and being like, "Oh, you know, popcorn, popcorn superhero movies, easily made, mass produced. That is the answer to, getting butts in seats and, getting money and all of that." That is not what we should be learning. What we should be learning is that great stories delivered by great artists is the answer. Iron Man is a good film because Jon Favreau is a good director, and it's a well-written script, and Robert Downey Jr. is a good actor, and you know, and so is everybody else in that movie, and that is the answer. We need good stories told by good artists. Um, and then superhero fatigue ceases to exist, and there it is. Okay, I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna get off my superhero movie soapbox real quick, and then go to this question from Kabuko, a very good friend of mine. Um, Favorite actor and favorite director. Now this is a really hard question. Okay, favorite director. I have it between two people. Um, have it between Kevin Smith and Steven Spielberg. I I have two different reasons for this. Okay, I grew up on Steven Spielberg's films. E.T., Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Tintin, uh, um, heck, 1941, for as much people hate that movie. Um, and I love his movies. And I love his spirit. And, as a filmmaker and as a person, uh, I relate very much to Spielberg. His optimism and his spirit. And I love those movies because there's a spirit of adventure and the spirit of optimism and a a love of humanity, and that's what I resonate with. And that's those are the types of stories I want to make. E.T. Secretly is is a story of a kid wanting a father, trying to fill a hole, and finding that in an alien from outer space that can love and finds the light in all of us. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a story of, belief and and love. And Last Crusade, it's about faith. And The Fablemans recently, very very much connected with me as someone who wants to make movies. But it also connected me on another level of I understand the conflict he had with his parents, and that's really beautiful to me because it's real. Um, that these people are human. You know, when you're growing up, you don't think your parents are human in a very real sense. You think they're these titans, these like gods almost, but they're human and they're faulty and they make mistakes and nothing's perfect. And I think that's the beauty of it. In that stuff like that doesn't last forever. At least not in the way you remember, and that's okay. And also the fact that art is beautiful because it has a bias. Art is beautiful because takes it takes a look at the whole picture and says, you know, this is the answer. This is the answer. It doesn't take the middle ground. It says, the horizon is at the top. The horizon is at the bottom. It's not in the middle. Because that's interesting. So, and then moving to Kevin Smith. Kevin is an incredible inspiration to me. I love Kevin. He's a hilarious guy. Such a big heart. I met him a couple weeks ago. Beautiful guy. Beautiful guy. And what he did for me is immeasurable. Because he showed me that, that, you know, a fat nerd like me could make movies. And just a normal guy could make movies. Could, fantastic, incredible movies. Iconic movies. I think Dogma is one of the best, action adventure fantasy films ever. I think Mallrats is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Um, Clerks is one of the best coming of age movies ever. Um, Chasing Amy, you know, enough said. I mean, it's amazing. Clerks 2, so hilarious. Rosario Dawson is amazing in that movie. I mean, Rosario Dawson is amazing in anything, and that's just a fact. If you disagree with that, you can go not have a fun life. Um, but I love Kevin Smith because he really gets people, and you really see that in his dialogue, and also just in the characters he brings to life, and even in the silly stuff is where he gets people. Um, I think that's beautiful. Um, Favorite actor is the other part of the question. That's really difficult for me to answer. Though I'll give a couple people. Al Pacino, who I think is one of the best actors ever. Um, Robert De Niro, another amazing actor. Andrew Garfield, who I think is probably the best male actor working right now. Um, and I think another one. I think another one that has really gotten me as of recent is Kiki Palmer is amazing. Um, like she just like whenever she has a part, she absolutely steals the show every time. And I mean, same thing with a amazing actor like Letitia Wright, who absolutely stole the show in Wakanda Forever, which is my favorite Marvel film. I mean, heck, it might even go to battle with Batman as the Phantasm and Superman the movie for my favorite superhero movie. It's a beautiful film. Angela Bassett as well. Absolute, just mind blowing. How incredible! And I know Jonathan Majors is a touchy subject right now, but um, uh, I'm not gonna say anything about uh, those reports because it's not my place to say either way. On behalf of the victim or Jonathan Majors himself. But uh, I think he's an incredible actor. Um, doesn't change the whatever the truth is. But I think he's an incredible actor. Um, based on his work in The Harder They Fall, in the I believe it was called the Last Black Man in Los Angeles. I believe it's called. Um, as well as his work as Kang, and and honestly, just watching interviews, he's really nice guy. Um, from what I can tell, not making any saying it's not saying heads or tails about that, but I think he's a really interesting actor. Um, and going from that, I think I think that Samuel Jackson is incredible. I think he's both one of the most hilarious, but also one of the most profound actors of his generation. As well as I think that Donald Glover is one of the most interesting and important artists right now. Uh, Amazing musician, um, such a great writer, and also just really good actor, both dramatically and comedically. I mean, as you can see, going from like Community to Atlanta to his work as Childish Gambino, absolute star, like incredible. I think Lakeith Stanfield's great from his work in Jordan Peele's work, and also in Atlanta and The Harder They Fall. Uh, Really good actor. Um, it's 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 really hard to say a favorite actor because it's hard to pick a favorite. I think Janelle Monet from Glass Onion was absolutely incredible. Um, I think that Robert Downey Jr. has always been one of my favorite actors from any of his work. I'm not the type to jump on a bandwagon. I mean, I I'm not a fan of his work because of Iron Man. That's what I'm saying. I've always been a very big fan of his work. Um, I love him as Iron Man, of course. Terrific job. But I also love him in the Sherlock Holmes films. I love him in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I think Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is his best film, directed by Shane Black, who is one of my favorite directors. Um, and I think he's an amazing actor. Um, and he's had such a great career, and I really think that's just undeniable. And yeah, I also Ben Affleck. I know. Like you either love him or you hate him, I guess. But Ben Affleck is such a great actor, and also he's just a really genuinely good guy. And into that, he's also a great he's a great director as well, which is really standout from him. Really seeing his acting to directing, like he just starred in and directed Air, which is the story of you know of the creation of the Nike shoe. Um, and I think he's a wonderful director and a wonderful actor. From Good Will Hunting, all of Kevin Smith's work. I think no matter what you think of, no matter what you think of the writing of him as Batman, I think he was perfect for the part. Um, yeah, Ben Ben Affleck is just great. Um, and from that, I'm gonna transition into answering a question from my good friend Chase, otherwise known as Red Team on Twitter, asking how's Prodigy going, which by that he means the comic book anthology that I'm working on with my good friend and artist partner Zane M. Fannin. Um, Prodigy Comics is it's a comic book anthology in lieu of Action Comics or Detective Comics. In that you get to experience a bunch of different stories in just one book. And I'm writing my own piece of that, which is called Sagittarius: The Most Dangerous Game. And I'm really excited about it. It's coming along really well. It's not all filled up, so if there are any artists or writers out there, and you have a story to tell, feel free to hit us up and hit us up at I'm at Batmanultra7 at gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter at Batmanultra7. Um, and then we can go from there. And I'd love to give anyone the chance to tell their story, because this is really what it's all about. That's what this channel's about, and this is what I'm about. If I can give you a chance, I want you to tell your story, and now to the last question. And my friend Strawhead Stephen uh, has decided just be that guy, and give me the hardest question that has been asked today. And um, and when I say hardest question, it is the hardest question, and it is: have you ever thought of writing a TMNT story? If so, have you thought about villains you'd use? What eras of their mythos would you lean heavy into? Would you go for something completely unexplored in their history? Now, I am a huge TMNT fan. I've watched every show. Okay. I grew up on the DVDs of the '80s show. Um, I grew up watching the 2003 show live every Saturday on the Fox box. And then I watched the 2012 show as it was coming out, as well as Rise of the TMNT. I was there for Turtles Forever. I was there for the Michael Bay films. I love the '90s live action films. I acknowledged the live action TV show. Um, I love the comics. It's just such a hard question. I think probably one of my favorite parts of uh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that isn't explored very much is the mutant side. You know, I think Shredder's awesome. I don't think Shredder's been done better than the 2003 show, where he has the most menacing voice. His theme, it runs chills down your spine. And his look, you know, Chef's kiss. I mean, a even as a Neutron, little goop guy, he is, you know, so scary and so threatening, and the voice is perfect. And like, what more can I say about that version of the Shredder? But um, I think yeah, I think the mutant side is very interesting. I think every era of TMNT is equally valid. I think you really need a balance if you're gonna tell a TMNT story, because you can't just be the '80s show and just be all the way goofy and at least if I was gonna tell a story. But you also can't be all the way the 2003 show, because the 2003 show is great at storytelling. It's great at very serious storytelling. And I'm not saying it's like uber dark, because it's not. You know, it has its levity to it, but um, you just can't go all the way in that direction. And even with 2012, which was a much more of a balance between the two shows. Um, you just can't go all the way in one direction of the eras, because I think each era has a vital key, or piece to the puzzle. Um, and that's very clear to me. Um, yeah, this is an impossible question, because there are so many interesting parts of TMNT history. I think Baxter Stockman is such a great character, especially the way they used him in the 2003 show, where he worked for the Shredder, and every time he messes up, he has to go to Shredder, and Shredder cuts off a piece of him every time. And then there's a point in the show where he's just a brain in a bottle, and that is so disturbing. And also, like, there's even, like, there's also, like, talking about the origin of Splinter. Do you make Splinter he used to be a man, or do you make Splinter he was a rat who was exposed to mutagen, and becomes just a big rat guy? Which way do you go? I mean, which is the right way? You know, I think they're both valid. Um, I think they're both pretty equally valid, but I I myself prefer, you know, um, I myself prefer uh, Splinter being a rat. Um, but I think they're both pretty valid. And as much as I love Rise of the TMT, I probably wouldn't go in the direction of a more uh, a more chillaxed Splinter, kind of couch potato Splinter, which I don't think is really a bad thing. It's just a different interpretation to me. Okay, I think if I were to write a TMNT story, that I would go with Agent Bishop. And I would tell you why. My favorite part of the 2003 TMNT show is the arc with Agent Bishop, where he's hunting down mutants and in causing a mess of things in New York, and and everything involved with the Triceratons and the Fugitoid. It's really fascinating, and also this comes down to my favorite episode of all of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is where Donatello gets mutated and is turned into like a monster. And it's basically a horror movie episode where everybody's like almost, is like trying to not be killed by this monster Donatello. And it's so disheartening, and it's so scary because you love Donatello, because he's one of the sweetest characters in Team NT, and there's this like desperation to it, and this devastation to it, and I think that's kind of the story I want to tell. That like Donatello has like a slow dark transformation through it, and you have Agent Bishop who's trying to basically destroy them, test on them for the betterment of America and all of that, in national security. And it's just the character of Agent Bishop is fascinating to me, especially within the context of the 2003 show. And and I think that would be something really interesting to play with. Um, and I mean, alternative stories besides that, like I love the Purple Dragons and how that plays into connections with Shredder. Um, I love to play into that because I love Hun. I think Hun's one of the most interesting characters. I mean, I think you could do a short story just focusing on the dynamic between Casey Jones and Hun, because I think that's fascinating and really interesting. Um, about going for something completely unexplored in their history. Um, I think it would be really interesting um, to uh, to bring in a villain to bring in a villain that uh, almost parallels the like dedication and skill and character of Leonardo. Leonardo is my favorite turtle, and I think it would be really interesting to have a kind of mastermind villain who parallels him in almost every way, kind of revealing the danger of what would happen if Leonardo went rogue. And I think that would be really interesting to me, and he would be a villain worse than Shredder, worse than the Triceratons, worse than Agent Bishop, and he'd be brutal, and he'd be vastly intelligent, but also, you know, completely brutal. And I, 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 I just, it's just really fascinating me. That idea of parallels. Um, and also just leaning more into the samurai aspect uh, of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and also I think one of the most understated aspects of the TMNT is is the T. um, is the fact that they're teenagers, and I'd love to play into that dynamic of immaturity and growing into the person you're supposed to be, and like coming of age and all that, and um, and that's something I'd have a lot of fun playing with. Uh, and I just want to thank everybody for asking these questions. I mean, they were great questions, and I clearly had a lot more to say about them than I realized. Um, and if you enjoyed me talking about any of these subjects, ask me more questions. And if there were any particular subjects that I talked about at length that you would want me to talk about again, let me know in the comments. And I hope you have a wonderful night. With that, I want to say good night, blessings to all of you, and be well, live a full life, and be joyful. Good night.